I have it up there on the big screen, and I'm going to share it here. We've got a lot of technology going on here, so just have to be a little bit patient here. I'm going to share that up there. Is it okay if I record this as well? You want it recorded?
Yes, and I record it also.
Okay, oh, it's already recording.
And then it will be posted.
Okay.
Yeah, but go ahead if you want to. That's fine.
No, that's okay. You go ahead and record. And got it on there. Okay. Excellent. Okay. Sorry about that. So let's talk about cryptocurrency. I'm sure you've heard something about this, or you may have heard about some other types of assets that are digital, such as NFTs, or you may have heard of people trading art that's digital in some fashion. You've certainly probably heard of Bitcoin, or maybe even Trump coin. You got some of you maybe some of you secretly have Trump coin. So yeah, it's okay. I shouldn't have stirred up the hornet's nest to start out with here in my presentation. But first of all, a disclaimer: I am not an investment advisor. I'm not in any way telling you that these are good or bad. I'm trying to provide you with the information, and you can kind of decide what you think from there. We'll talk a little bit about stuff. And so this is a little bit of my agenda. We'll see how much we get to this. But we'll talk about blockchain and Bitcoin and how it kind of solved the problem of early digital money. Now, I'm going to stop my share for just a quick second here because I want to, we're going to take a picture because my students would not believe that people actually show up to hear me talk when it's not compulsory. So let's take a picture. Okay. So I took a digital picture there, and I could send this to tens of people, hundreds of people, thousands of people, and they would all have exactly the same image, right? So we're all kind of agreed on that they would get the same quality, and it could be replicated many times, and Sarah could send it to John and to everybody else, right? And so that's really great. So we like
The water bottle.
copies of photos that are exactly the same. Now let's think about money. Okay, so think about money for a little bit. If I have some digital money, if I have my money in my bank account and I send a little bit to Mary Jo and I send that same dollar to Sarah, that's bad, right? Copying money is generally bad, okay? And so that's why we have central authorities like banks that are kind of the central authority on who's got what money, when money gets transferred, things like that. Most money is not in a physical form. 90% of all the money is just numbers in a computer somewhere. And we have these central authorities that make sure that that doesn't get copied. Well, if you're wanting to have something that's like a digital cash, that I don't need that kind of central server or authority, then this becomes a problem, okay? And in the 90s, there were some early experiments with using digital money that was kind of created by the people, a digital cash, if you will, that you didn't have to require some MasterCard or Visa or something like that to be involved with. And this had this problem that sometimes you could trick the system so that I could use that dollar twice. Okay, that's called the double spend problem. And so the double spend problem was solved by this thing called Bitcoin. So you may have heard of Bitcoin. This is the white paper that originally described, let me see here, described Bitcoin. It took together a number of different technologies, and it basically, with cryptographic means, was able to solve this problem of the digital, of the double spend, rather. And so we'll talk just a little bit about how it did that, but that was really the first time that we had something like this that was independent of any central authority. It wasn't issued by the government. It wasn't issued by a bank or anything like that, but it still maintained this property of money that couldn't be spent twice, okay? A very valuable property of money. So you can read this if you go look it up. It's not that technical, actually. Just the last 2 pages kind of have some math involved, so you can kind of skip that. But it really talks in a very general form about combining some different technologies, such as cryptography, along with something called blockchain. So blockchain was actually around before then. But what it allows you to do is it allows you to make entries. And here I have a typical kind of mock-up of a blockchain, where it basically records the transfer of money, and that transfer of money gets recorded in a ledger, and it gets recorded in a way that it can't ever be altered. So I can't go back and change that first line that says Scott pays Mateo $5. I can't go back and change that, so therefore I can't spend that money again, if you will. Okay, so this is what's called a blockchain. So things are recorded in these large blocks, and there's some cryptographic stuff that goes on, and it makes sure that these things can't be reused again. So it's a very interesting database technology. You have an immutable ledger. So unlike Excel, where I could go back in and I could change the entries that are in there, I can't do that with blockchain. Okay, so that lends itself to some very interesting things. It also is peer-to-peer. So it is actually based on individuals or organizations that are running these types of networks, and the computers are doing all this work. So it's independent of any sort of government authority. As you can imagine, there's a lot of libertarian types that like that idea. You know, damn it, the Fed is printing more money and all this kind of stuff, and they don't like the fact that the government can alter the monetary policy in a way that manipulates the economy. Okay, so that's a big issue. There's also an entire field, what we call Austrian economics, which is kind of a fringe idea, but it also aligns with that. So, so that's why it's very useful for this particular area of money, but it can be used in other areas. So for example, there have been some applications of actually voting on a blockchain. Once again, once you vote, you don't want that vote to be changed. Here we have a cryptographic method to make sure that that vote does not get changed. And so this is a company, actually a nonprofit, that worked to come up with ways that people could vote using their phones. This was used mainly for overseas servicemen. And so Brianna Lennon could, of course, tell us about the difficulties with getting ballots overseas and then getting them back in time and all that kind of stuff. So there's a large amount of votes that don't get counted there. It's also been used in some places for people that are homebound. Okay, so maybe that have difficulties there. So there's some ways that it can be used for technologies like that. So it might be used in voting. There's some people that would like to see us all voting electronically on our cell phones, okay, with the idea that it would increase voter turnout. However, there are some countries like Estonia where they have smart cards. Every citizen has a smart card, and you can vote from your computer. And it doesn't seem to change the number of people that vote anyway. There's probably other things going on there, right?
Digital ID.
Digital ID, exactly. So, so that's just one thing to think about. This blockchain is being used for other applications besides money, okay? But it is mainly featured in these ideas of having some sort of digital cash. And in many ways, it is kind of like cash. So just like with your cash, you need to have a wallet in which to place it. Now, the wallet is really contained of cryptographic keys. Okay, we aren't going to get into how that cryptographic stuff works. It's actually fairly user-friendly in that you have kind of an app that does all that work for you. But you can have what's called a custodial wallet, where you actually have an entity, like a third party, maintains that wallet for you, or you can keep your own wallet. And so there's also some of the libertarian types that are very much like it's your own keys, it's not your money, okay? So they encourage people to have their own cryptographic keys. Because it is very much like cash, you see some of the same things it being used for, Okay. Now, what are some of the advantages of cash? Once again, we kind of mentioned the fact you don't need a central server authority. If Sarah gives me $20 to go get a pizza, and well, maybe pizzas are more now, or $50 to get a pizza, and I just leave and never come back, what does she do? She write to the Department of Treasury, I need my $50 back? No, right? So it's a kind of peer-to-peer transaction, okay? Same sort of thing with Bitcoin, okay? If I give you the Bitcoin and you abscond with it, well, there's very little that I can do, right? Compared to like, let's say that it was a MasterCard transaction, I could dispute the transaction or something like that. But because it was used, it was very similar to cash, we see that it was used for all sorts of interesting things. So for example, here's a screenshot that I did many years ago from, I think I did this, or maybe I got it off the web, from the Silk Road, which was a site on, that I'll show you how to get to here in a minute. But you could go on there and you could buy your half a gram of cocaine for $85. Oh, that's cheap. I don't know how much cocaine costs, but you could go on there and buy your drugs online, and you would pay in Bitcoin because it was that kind of anonymous thing. So there was, even though you have it in this wallet, you don't, if I just have a wallet with cash in it, you don't know whose wallet that is, right? Okay, so think about it that kind of way. It's kind of, there's this anonymity, okay? So you don't know where this money's coming from, and so it's kind of untraceable in some regards. So that's the same sort of reason that, you have a lot of black market stuff uses cash, right? So it's nice, untraceable. I don't want to, use my Boone County checking account to buy my cocaine. So this is on the quote unquote dark web. And I'll show you how to get on there. It's actually not too hard. So I'm going to bring up something now called the Tor browser. And this also hides my IP address. And see if I can get that over there. Wait a second. Did that not work? Wait a second, I don't know what I'm doing here. There we go. I pull this over here, and then let me share this up for the group. So here is a place that I can access via the Tor browser. And if you can see up there at the very top, the URL looks very weird. So you have this URL that has all this kind of weird stuff in it, .onion, okay? And this is because it's randomizing my IP address, so I can't be traced that way. But here we could buy a passport. Where do we want to go? Let me see. Great Britain, that would be nice. I like Great Britain. So I would, Sarah, you want to come with me? We'll get two passports. Oh, Mary Jo, she wants to go along, okay. So we're gonna buy 3 passports. And I would have to log in now at this point and actually, create some sort of identity. But this is one example. Here's another one where we can buy fake dollar bills. And we will once again be buying this with Bitcoin. Okay, so we're going to buy it with Bitcoin. So
It's just like you let the kids decide that they could make up any world they want.
yeah, it's still very illegal. Okay,
So are the things that the kids do.
it's still
Marijuana is
extremely
illegal still federally.
right. So it's still very illegal. But yeah, this is where it kind of got us
Because
notoriety.
kids like to play with fake money. They like to, pretend that the things that they make are other things.
Right.
Mud pies, that sort of thing.
Yeah.
It just reminds me of that.
Yeah, so that's where it got a lot of its early use, okay, was in this kind of nefarious ways that were used. Now, you may have seen some of the, let's see, hopefully Sarah's monitoring this and I'm doing all right with my sharing and stuff.
Looks good to me.
Okay, so this is what the Silk Road looked like because it was taken down by the FBI. There's actually a really good book called American Kingpin, which I would highly recommend, that talks about that process of figuring out who this was. And this was a gentleman named Ross Ulbricht, who within 6 days of the Trump administration, was pardoned. Okay, so he was serving four concurrent life sentences, not for being a marketplace for cocaine and other things like that, but for actually ordering hits on people's lives. Okay, so he ordered hits on their lives. He paid with Bitcoin. The FBI actually got to the people that were the supposed victims, made them pretend to be dead. Had one guy lay in a bathtub and covered in blood, and put it back to him. And so it wasn't just some kid that got messed up in drugs. It was a kid that thought he was getting people murdered. So anyway, that's kind of the dark side of that, right? So let's talk a little bit more about Bitcoin. So Bitcoin is...
I was gonna ask if we could hire him for somebody, but he's really.
So Bitcoin is a digital currency, and I'm going to try and share another screen here. How am I going to do this? Is that what I want to do? Yeah, I think that's what I want to do. Okay. So let me share another screen here, if I can. I get the right one up. Here we go. Yes, this is a place called Coinbase. Okay, if you are thinking about trading in cryptocurrency, Coinbase is probably the most legitimate place that you can do this. Okay, I have no money here in my account. I did have at various times money in my account, but you can see all different types of cryptocurrency. So you would transfer the money from your, central bank account, ACH transfer, kind of standard stuff, and then you could invest it in various currencies. So Bitcoin is kind of the most known one. And the interesting thing about Bitcoin is, one of the properties, I guess, is that it is finite. There's only going to be so many Bitcoins, if you will, ever issued. So once again, this kind of attracts the libertarian instinct, if you will. And there's been a substantial increase in this cryptocurrency over time. So you obviously see lots of stories about somebody way back when buying a pizza for 8 Bitcoins. And of course, those 8 Bitcoins would be close to $1 million now. Okay. Wow. So this is a highly volatile asset. It is one that, what's the value of it? Well, it's unlike gold. Gold is an interesting asset because you can actually do stuff with gold, right? You can make electronics and things like that. It might be considered a commodity currency. Well, the value is because people say it has value, okay? So it's, once again, a very speculative asset, okay? Yes.
Is there a tangible Bitcoin?
No, there's not.
This is all
No.
done.
Yeah, so let's look for Blockchain Explorer. So we'll actually can look at all the transactions. Remember I said it was transparent but anonymous? So we can actually see all the transactions that are going on in this network. And so let's just click on one here. So here, it's going to be kind of hard to read, but this is, this is a substantial amount. So it's 109 Bitcoins. It is, I think that's 10 million, right?
Oh,
So-
yes, sorry.
so-
Yes.
Yeah, so $10 million.
No government and no bank gets to see that transaction.
Oh, you can see the transaction. We can see it right here, but
you
it's,
don't know who it is.
but I don't, once again, it's pseudo-anonymous. I don't know. So a bank is what they call KYC compliant. They're know your customer, okay? Whereas the entire Bitcoin network, it's all just like you and I got together and say, hey, why don't we paint these rocks and we'll call these money, okay? And then I'll pay you and you pay that. And we all agree that this has value. Okay, so that's really what happens here.
So there's a fee involved.
There is a fee for the transfer, so it looks like it was what,
$1.28.
$1.28.
On $10
So-
million, that's good.
Yeah, so, well, on $10 million. So this is one of the, you see the banks are starting to look at, could this technology, it has not been hacked in the 10 or 12 years it's been around.
Wow.
Could this technology be used to make the transfers that we normally do much more efficient, right? Because if I was to go down to, Mizzou Credit and say, I want to transfer $10 million to Sarah, it's going to take a while, okay? Probably 30 days before it finally settles, okay? And it's going to cost a bunch of money, like thousands and thousands of dollars, tens of thousands of
Don't you
dollars.
have to get permission to transfer that much money? We had, at church, we had to get permission to transfer $190,000 to
Yeah, you have to,
investment, so they had to lift.
yeah, they don't want you to get fraud, so the banks are trying to protect you, all that kind of stuff. Here, I can send it off and do whatever the heck I want,
A matter of seconds.
in a matter of seconds. Now, the main way, I said that it has not been hacked. The main way that people do get hacked, if you will, there's two main dangers. One is, I mentioned this idea of keys and wallets. So essentially, if I can get you to turn over the access to that wallet to me, essentially the keys that you have, then I can extract everything out of your wallet. It's like me getting a hold of your wallet and pulling all the dollar bills out of it. So same sort of thing here. There's lots and lots of schemes to do that. Also, people lose their wallet. They lose the keys because you can see here, these are large cryptographic numbers, these addresses, so here's this address. Well, the private address is actually going to be even longer than this. And if I don't have that in a way that's backed up, that's going to be a problem. Also, what if I have there was one guy, Michael, I forgot his last name, but first name is Michael. He had over $500 million in cryptocurrency, and he was on a vacation and dropped dead. Well, he had
I
not
was
told
gonna
his
ask you about
heirs,
that. Right,
he had not told his heirs how to access this.
right, he hadn't given him that code.
Right, he hadn't given them that
I was
code.
wondering about this, yeah.
So you also hear of people that are like out in the New Jersey landfill looking for the computer that has the Bitcoin on it, okay? That's not, the Bitcoin is right here. We can see it. We can see it on the
But
ledger.
would it be on his computer?
No,
Is that-
it's the code to get into the wallet is on the computer.
So if his heirs couldn't access that money, where the money go?
It just sits there.
Forever.
It sits there. It will sit there forever. So there's about $200 billion of lost cryptocurrency assets that are going to forever sit on these
Worldwide.
networks. Yeah,
Oh my
worldwide.
gosh.
Wow,
So
Somebody paid something for it sometime, we don't know how much.
and then it went up in value, right?
oh yeah,
Like
well,
it's-
you could trace that. It goes, some go up, some go down. Yeah. So
It's like if you lost $100 bill.
yes.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Can you
drop
put it in your
it's
will?
gone.
but you wouldn't lose 10 million though.
Can
Yeah.
you put it in your will?
Yeah. So you could put it in your will.
But somebody would still have to have access to the wallet.
Well, yeah, you could actually write down the numbers and sequences in your will. However, now your lawyer abscond with that, so there's all sorts of other things that you get into multi-signature. So there's an entire area that we could talk about, just how you get these things secured.
So why would my investor with Morgan Stanley not like this, for instance?
Why would they not like that? One, they don't make a fee off of
That's
this.
exactly what I was thinking
It's,
that.
it is difficult for estate planning, to make sure that you have those keys backed up in a way that's going to be secure. Some people will have them, there's all sorts of elaborate ways that they do this. So I used to just print them out and put them in a safety deposit box, right?
Oh,
And so
interesting. I'll have to ask my sister who has some.
that's one of the ways that you can do it. Good questions. Maybe there's more questions on the chat here too, I don't know. Okay, well, what is there a tangible, oh yeah, there is not a tangible object.
Do we think that our supreme leader has investments in this since he?
We know
He has his own,
He
he
Okay.
states it,
has
yeah.
his own device.
Oh,
So,
yeah.
um,
What's
You
Trump?
invest and I'll
What's
give
Trump
you-
Bitcoin?
You get to go to Mar-a-Lago.
Yeah, so this is,
No, the White House.
yeah,
think
they
Mar-a-Lago.
pulled that one, but here's the official Trump coin. Okay, so this is another thing that there's another entire area of what we call meme coins. So the Bitcoin was the original one. There have been subsequent coins that have been developed in subsequent networks where, I don't want to get too complicated, but you can actually have a network of underlying all these transactions, and then you can say, I'm going to create a Scott coin or a Muleskinners coin, okay? And I'm going to have that on top of that, okay? And so that might be great. There have been numerous examples of places actually developing these types of coins that might give you money for saving money on your electricity bill, or they might do something else like you worked out and you get a little coin or something. So there's other ways that people are trying to look at these things that are not quite as nefarious. Who maintains the servers? Well, the servers are actually maintained by individuals who will mine Bitcoin. So you may have heard somebody of mining Bitcoin. Well, that little fee went to whoever helped make the cryptography work. I don't need to get into too much detail, but that act of cryptography involves solving a puzzle, and basically whoever solves the puzzle first gets that fee, okay? And that in a cryptographic way that makes it secure. Now you'll see here with the official Trump coin, it was released and then it fell precipitously, okay? Now this is what many people suspect is that the people behind this are doing what's called a rug pull. You know, let's get everybody else to invest and then I'm gonna pull my money out, right?
And what does that do for you?
Well,
You take their
if I'm the creator of the coin, I make a couple $1 million. So I create the Muleskinners coin. Hey, everybody buy Muleskinners coin. It's only $5. It goes up to $20, and then Muleskinners, who owns 60% of it, sells it all, and the market crashes. Okay.
Sells it all on here.
Yes, on here
at that high price.
at that high price, and Al is stuck with that. He invests his $5 is now worth 3 cents. Right? So he put all his retirement savings in that, and it's all gone.
What do you think all that tariff now, tariff not is all about? Same thing.
Yeah. Yeah. So yeah.
Off topic.
So that's so this is very problematic
invest
as
in China
you guys have identified the emoluments clause and all that kind of stuff. As far
What's
as
the emoluments clause?
it's basically you can't use your office to enrich yourself.
That was on
Well,
NBC.
it's in the Constitution.
Right, it's in the Constitution.
What's that? The Constitution.
So these are very problematic, and you also there's been Logan Paul has been like a YouTuber that has also issued his own coin, and he uses the social network that he has to pump it up, get people to invest, and then they kind of pull out. Okay, so this is a new financial. Well, not a new financial scam. Actually, the mob used to do this in the 20s and 30s with penny stocks.
And our US
right?
government is doing it. Oh.
So yeah, we're kind of getting an aside here, but let's talk about. I
I
can.
mean, the aside is there's nothing new under the sun, but you're talking about the things that are, if not new, at least unknown.
Right. So now let's also just talk about what would happen if you do invest in these things here. So I'm going to assume that you are not money laundering or doing anything illegal, but if you are legitimately going on Coinbase and you're buying something, you are going to have to pay taxes on it.
Yeah.
Okay. And
How do
so-
they know about it? I mean, to pay.
Well, in the case of Coinbase, they actually do report to the government. They do report every transaction. So it says they are a KYC compliant exchange. where I have to go on and I have to, give my passport or an ID. And it's very much like setting up a bank account because they do want to be the legitimate exchange for this. There are other
So
ones.
you do get a 1099.
I don't get a
Oh,
1099.
you don't?
Well, actually, you do get a 1099, but it's a different kind of version. So there's many taxable events when it comes to cryptocurrency, and
Are you reporting to the IRS?
yes. So, but the weird thing is the IRS considers crypto to be like property, kind of like equities, okay, like a stock. Okay, so it's subject to capital gains and capital loss calculations. Okay, so you may have seen this is from a while ago, but it's still in the latest 2024. Did you receive, buy, exchange, otherwise in a virtual currency? So you have any interest in a virtual currency? You may have seen that question.
Where does it say that on there? Oh, the
Yeah,
bottom.
you'll see it on your 1099. Okay.
Because even if you exchange it, they want you to pay taxes on what you
Yes.
receive.
So
If it's over a certain amount.
no, it's no. This is the problem. So let's say if it isn't reported by an exchange, you have to fill out this for every single transaction you make, 8949, okay? This is why it tends not to be considered a currency, okay? Let's say that I go buy $10 worth of Bitcoin. It goes up to $100, no taxable events. I then buy a seltzer water, but I'm using my Bitcoin that went up, or some fraction of it, to buy the seltzer water. That is now a capital gains event. So it's either subject to short-term or long-term capital gains. Now I go buy a candy bar. I have another entry in here for the candy bar, so forth and so on. Oh, wait a second. It was Trump coin and it went down. I used the Trump coin to buy something, which you can't do, but now it's a capital loss. Okay, so you see the problem with actually using it as a currency. So there's not only problems such as is it a real store of value and things like that, but the actual practical. Okay, so like you would actually track your coins, and because long-term capital gains is like 15% essentially, whereas short-term is 25%. So.
And long-term used to be 30, but.
Right. So anyway, we could walk you through all sorts of scenarios by, which you'd have to calculate all that stuff. If you're actually interested in that, I could tell you more. But this is one of the problems. So if you use anything like Robinhood, you use any of these places that are trying to be legitimate exchanges, they will report this, and you will get a 1099 type of forms that will say what it is. And you can actually look on these platforms and see what your tax liability is. So there are several schemes to actually avoid taxes, as you might imagine. So you could obviously not report it.
You could fire half.
Fire everybody in the
Just fire the IRS.
You could also move to Puerto Rico. That's a better option. Puerto Rico has a 0% tax until January 2036 on capital gains. So we're trying to
So I
get.
should become a citizen of Puerto Rico.
Well,
Well, they're
you
not a
could.
state, but.
Well, yeah, it's still U.S. Yeah.
You have to
I
do
know
is
it's
move there.
US, so yeah.
So it's part of the U.S. Okay, same military will defend you, legal system, medical insurance, wonderful place,
Wow.
good
But their
food.
electricity goes out.
Not so much on electricity, yeah. So you can't just, you have to move. Okay, so you have to be there for 133 days a year, okay?
133 days, that's just 4 months, nice
Can't
warm
leave the
weather.
wife and kids back.
184 days.
184. Oh,
That's
how
half
many
the
months
year.
is that? That's half a year. Oh,
6
okay.
months.
Probably not doing it.
You're probably not
I'm
doing
going
it.
to I'm
Okay.
going to the European Union.
Other states have actually tried to do this. Wyoming is trying to do this to some degree. It's I don't know if it's really working all that well. Okay, so there's lots of things that we can kind of get into here. The other thing that's kind of interesting is this area of digital art. Okay, so just as if you remember way back way back 38 minutes ago, I took a picture of you all, and I said that I could send it to everybody, but who has the original? Okay, how do I make sure that mine is the original and Alice's is not the original?
Fake.
Okay, well, you can use these same cryptographic means that we can prove that you own a Bitcoin or a percentage of it to actually prove that you own something like this particular image here. Okay, this is one that sold for millions of dollars. Of course, you may have heard of Beeple. Okay, so Beeple actually, it's a digital artist, and he had a this thing called 5,000 Days, his digital art from for 5,000 days, and he sold this for I think it was 60 million.
Wow.
Somebody got rights to all 5,000.
Yeah, they own it, but you and I could also click on it, right-click on it, download it, and have the same quality image. But the person that owns it can say, I actually own it, and here's the proof. So an analogy would be like a Monet print, okay? So we might have a nice Monet print in here somewhere, and I don't see one right now. Oh, there's a nice print over there, yes. But where's the original art, you know? So it's not the original Monet, it's, but only one person can claim they have that, right? So things get kind of weird with this. So for example, let me make sure I'm sharing my audio here. Share sound.
Yes, Bruce.
Yeah, so let me see if I can play this little video clip. I don't know if it'll play or not.
A group of crypto enthusiasts recently purchased a piece of artwork by the mysterious street artist Banksy, and then they burned it. The blockchain company called Injective Protocol bought the screen print Morons for nearly $100,000 from a New York art gallery. The company says the virtual asset will now be sold as a non-fungible token, or NFT. Our CBSN technology reporter, Dan Patterson, wrote about this, and Dan joins us now to discuss. Okay, Dan, I've read your article about this. I've read lots of other articles about this, and I'm still scratching my head about what happened here. What does it even mean that they made a digital representation of the art and then turned it into a non-fungible token?
That is an excellent question, Lana. So bear with me. This is going to sound a little.
So yeah, that's he doesn't really have that much insight, but yeah, that's kind of a interesting idea, right? So you have this what is that an NFT represent? Does it represent the original Banksy that was burnt? Does it represent the performative art of destroying the Banksy? You know, and people think, oh well, this is just stupid. But I'm going to tell you that art has always been weird, and it's really cool that it's weird. Okay, and yeah.
I guess what I don't understand is it just because it's like bragging rights? Like who cares who owns the?
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like who cares who owns the non-fungible token that goes?
Well, who
with this
cares
piece
if
of
you
art?
own the original Monet?
But that is,
Yeah, there are people who buy these things and put them in a safe or in a room where nobody ever gets to see them. So that's a different idea of art than we normally have, where they have to go to a major museum.
So what I was going to say is that art has always been weird. So this is a particular piece of art called Erasure de Kooning. That was a de Kooning painting, or not painting but drawing, that was given to Robert Rauschenberg in the 1950s, and he then took an eraser and erased it. Okay, and this is in the San Francisco Museum of Modern Art. So what is it? Is that a de Kooning drawing? Is that a Rauschenberg? Does it represent the performative act of destroying it by erasure? You can actually use an X-ray to see the drawing underneath. So is it really destroyed? Once again, art has been weird. It's nice that it's weird, okay? And so that's a good thing. So I think it's I think you kind of should wait 100 years before you criticize art too much.
Yeah.
So I think we'll do that when it comes to these types of NFTs. Maybe they are just, a fad and was a bad idea, or maybe they're actually something. I don't know. And probably not my generation is the one to figure that out. Looks like Dave had some other good.
Oh,
good
I
art-
just posted a link to that rotting banana that sold for billions of dollars.
So this is also one of the, if these NFTs, they also are subject to those long-term and short-term capital gains. Okay, so they are also considered a digital asset. Okay, so all these digital assets are kind of the same way in that regard. Yeah, there's a lot of other interesting things going on. I think there may be some technology that comes out of this that will have some good applications. I would want to mention, since we've got just a little bit of time, there's also something that you may have heard of called central bank digital currencies.
I have another question after that.
Okay.
actually.
Oh, no, go ahead.
Well,
Maybe we
so-
don't want to get
So
into that.
marijuana, all these dispensaries, I can't in any way take my Bitcoin because I'm paying on, and go there and buy anything in Colombia, like at a dispensary, or,
With Bitcoin, you mean?
yeah, yeah.
So most vendors will not take it, not because they're opposed to Bitcoin per se, but it's so volatile. Because when you pay me for it, okay, that's great. You gave me the essentially what was, $10, right now. But by the time I get to the bank and cash it out, it's gone down to $5. So there's my margin has all been gobbled up by the decrease. So you really want a currency that is stable when you're doing any transactions as well. Okay, now if I'm just doing it is used often for what we call remittances. So if I want to if I'm here in the United States and I'm working here and my family is in the Philippines, I might not want to use Western Union and get those charges to transfer money. I want to use, there's some cryptocurrencies called like Ripple, where it's used a lot just for those types of transfers. And so my family will get it there, and within a few seconds, they will transfer it back out to the local currency. And so there's not a
Really?
chance there's not a chance for it to go up and down.
So online, they can transfer it to real currency on that chart.
Yes,
to
yes.
the
So
right
within
where you buy,
15
sell.
minutes, they would have gotten it and transferred it out. Now, one of the things that up until this administration, we've enjoyed a very stable currency, okay? And
Until
this,
last week.
so this
It's
is,
Biden's fault.
this is one of the things that I don't think people fully appreciate here in the US, is just how stable our currency is. Because if you were to think about living in Argentina or Venezuela or one of these other places, if I get paid, I should buy a toaster with that, because the toaster is going to hold value more than my local currency. Okay, and in fact, for a while, they would buy CD players because those would hold value for much longer than the currency. You've probably seen the Zimbabwe notes where it says $10 billion and all that kind of stuff, where you have these hyperinflation and other kind of weird things. So, yeah, we have a remarkably stable currency. It is the U.S. currency has been used. It's often used to settle transactions, even between countries that don't use the U.S. dollar. Okay, so if India and China are wanting to settle a transaction, they'll often settle it in dollars. Okay, because it's very stable. Okay, it doesn't move up and down that much. So during the time that's in the pipe, if you will, moving between things, the value's not gonna come out the other end differently. So we've enjoyed an enormous
But now that it's
benefit.
not stable, will they turn to China?
Well,
or-
a lot of places have been, it's still, there's lots of bulwarks that will probably keep the US dollar around for a while, but there have been, lots of attempts to kind of dethrone it, right?
Right.
And so one of the issues that we could talk about, I don't know if I want to get into too much, but it's the idea that what if the government started issuing digital currencies? So there's something called a central bank digital currency. China has been experimenting with this, and it has some advantages, but it also has some advantages to a surveillance state. Because now I can see all your transactions that are going on. So imagine that we're going to have we have our wallets, and the government can see what is going in and out of our wallets. And so we might not really like that here in the US, but in China, that might also feed into, be based on our social credit score. Okay, so they can see that, you know, Pam is always buying fresh vegetables, and she never buys cigarettes or beer, and that we can track her phone, and she's always asleep by, you know, 10 a.m. She's, or by 8 p.m. She's always home, and she always goes to the right political rallies and all that kind of good stuff. Well, you know, and then there's Scott, you know, he's always, you know, buying cigarettes. We can see from the cameras he's been jaywalking. He's in the wrong areas of Colombia at all hours.
They're watching.
So let's make that next beer that he buys $20. Let's change the monetary policy based on individual behavior. And so that's why you'll actually see the Trump administration talking very negatively against central bank digital currencies, because there's this idea that the government could watch you and might be able to affect your behavior based on that.
Sounds like insurance companies.
Sounds like it, yeah, sounds like insurance companies. Yeah, it's still, I would say, a Wild West. If you do decide to invest in this, what I tell people is what one of my guest lecturers said to my class. He said, think of it like curry. Put a little bit of curry on your meal tonight. That's going to spice things up. You add a little bit of cryptocurrency to your investment portfolio, that's probably fine. It spices things up a little. If you put a cup of it on your dinner tonight, that's going to give you some heartburn, right? So, you know, if you want to get $100 of Bitcoin and just see what it's like and try to understand it a little bit, that's fine. But it's extremely speculative, so I would never put anything in it that you weren't prepared to lose. Okay.
Then you can cash out.
You can cash out. So like I did have some cryptocurrency back in the, let me see, it was, well, I finally cashed everything out in 2017. I had this guest lecturer come to my class, and I had an extra job that came in. I was still running my business on the side. And I said, oh, well, I'll just put some of this money in this Bitcoin thingy. But I'm like a conservative investor, so I put $1,000 away in my index fund every month for decades, right? And so I don't speculate. So it was going up and down, and I don't know if you know the idea that you feel a loss more than you feel a gain. So if you gain $500 and then you lose $100, you feel that loss more. And so it's like, I cannot take this anymore. So I just said to hell with it and cashed it all out in 2017. So, you know, you just got to think about who you are as far as an investor, I guess. So,
Are you saying you're not in the market with your assets?
well, I'm in the market, but I'm not in the cryptocurrency.
Oh, I see. You were for a while, though.
Oh, yeah, for a little while. But
Wow.
once again, it was speculative. I thought it was just going to be stable. I didn't realize it was going to be so unstable. And I was like,
Right,
yeah, I
right.
can't deal with this emotionally. So,
Yeah.
so good questions. Other questions you might have?
It uses a lot of electricity.
Yes.
And that is a big problem.
It uses a lot of electricity.
Really?
That's, so
Because it's the computers?
well, because Bitcoin is, remember I said they get rewarded for solving a puzzle? Well, they, if I have a massive set of computers and massive amount of processing power, it's more likely I'm going to win that race to solve the puzzle. And so you will get places that are the size of all this area of buildings that have huge heating and cooling huge cooling requirements, not heating. And they will burn through a lot of electricity in order to do that. So the other types of cryptocurrencies have moved off to more environmentally friendly types of things, but yeah, it's using like the energy usage of Argentina or something like that. It's used every year for this.
So
Two or three nuclear power plants.
Yeah.
So the people I know, including my sister, she's not young, a lot of young people are interested in this because it's not
Right.
tied to an institution or, which countries of the world tends to be most heavily liking cryptocurrency?
Okay, so that's interesting because, you know, Cyprus, which has long been a haven for kind of laundering money, is very much into it. Nigeria is interesting because they use it a lot because of the instability of their currency. So there, they actually issued their own central bank digital currency, and the government has not been able to get people to adopt it because they don't trust the government. Because they're like, well, reason I use cryptocurrency in the first place is because I think, I don't trust the government issuing money.
So the citizens, the residents just use it on their cell phone, they buy in.
Right. The Kenya has had a way to transfer money for the, I think it's M-Peso or something like that for a long time. Yeah, it's kind of a Wild West. I can send you a couple of follow-up things if you want.
So not Russians, not Europeans that much, or, these emerging countries, these more,
Yeah, that's where you see the population as a whole using it.
I see,
Yeah.
interesting.
Yeah, but Russia is connected to Cyprus. The oligarchs of Russia are connected.
Yeah, you
to
can
Cyprus.
launder a
Because
lot
that's
of
where they
your.
launder their
That's where
money.
they run their money.
Thank you,
Yeah,
yeah.
you can run, a lot of.
Hey, I'm going to Cyprus,
You won't find it there.
Yeah.
it's online.
So there's a chance that when I give a Nigerian my bank account information, my mother's maiden name, my first name, my pet, that the money I get will be in cryptocurrency and not real dollars?
Right, yeah. It's once again, it's those scams, we laugh at them, but they work, unfortunately. So there's hundreds of millions of dollars that leave Missouri in scams, often in small amounts.
Maybe
So-
from drug money or meth money or
So if
something.
or if you call Dwayne Carey and say, hey, my grandma got, scammed out $10,000, the cybercrimes task force there, they'll be very sympathetic, but they'll be like, hey, I'm dealing with a murder case or a crime against a child. Unless you get into tens of millions, I really can't deal with it. So, and there were-
Address the question in the chat. Dave Rafel said he was in and out, but did you mention the crypto thrift?
oh, yeah, I think he meant, he might be meaning the grift of the Trump coin. I assume that's what he's meaning.
Well, generally, that all crypto assets are going to want to be backed by the full faith and credit of the United States, because banks and other institutions are going to start accepting them as collateral. And so when bubbles start popping, Bitcoin people will be asking for their bailout.
Yeah, so there's been, all sorts of weird things, like Trump has also proposed this, because there's only a certain amount of Bitcoin, this idea of a strategic reserve. So that would gobble up a bunch of it, make it more scarce. That would manipulate the prices. You can buy an ETF through Charles Schwab and other places that invest in cryptocurrencies. I say, even though those are a bank, I would say those, it's all
I can
still.
buy more Charles Schwab with,
You can buy more, you can buy an ETF, your investments here at Charles Schwab, you can buy
what's an ATF?
an ETF.
ETF,
It's,
ETF.
exchange traded funds.
Yeah, so it's a bundle of funds that are in a particular market, so you
Right,
can do
right.
like
It's on the
real estate, other areas that you can buy into, so. It's a way to buy exposure into that asset class that's in a kind of a more balanced way, rather than picking one thing. I would not, once again, don't put anything you don't want to lose.
No, I'm not doing it. I'm already losing plenty right now. So when Trump came in, we know he has some Trump coin, Bitcoin. I think people thought he might legalize it or make some legal changes in it or not, do you think? Or-
They've really kind of have actually, the Biden administration was moving toward a regulatory scheme for cryptocurrencies.
Of course.
And that would actually, may surprise you, but most of the people that were really into cryptocurrencies were very much for that, because they wanted to bring that stability in some ways. And Trump has kind of unwound that, okay? And so that's been,
Keep it the Wild West.
yeah, so it seems to, at this point, be kind of returning back to that Wild West. We're not going to regulate it. So, anyway, great questions.
Thank you so much. This was
Yeah.
really informative.
Okay, well, thanks.
Thank you, Scott.
Yeah, no problem. Thanks for having me.
I have one more little question, just because Rachel yesterday was talking about Dodge and
Uh-huh.
how they have all our data, everything about us, all your tax returns, everything you've ever done since you were 1 year old. So if on your tax return, and they could hold it against us at some point if they wanted to, like the woman from,
Or they
some
can sell
woman
the
who had
information.
some penalty in California someplace and they dug up an old thing that she had done, which the state had, well, anyway, so my question is, could they see on our tax return that we had cryptocurrency and hold it against us since it's illegal?
Oh, it's not illegal
It's not legal.
It's not illegal, it's just not, oh, it's not illegal.
to have cryptocurrency. What's illegal is to not report that you made money off of
Right,
cryptocurrency.
so unlike marijuana, which is federally still illegal, cryptocurrency isn't, okay.
Right, so like I could go buy, like I said, I could buy a blue rock for $10, and then it goes up to $100 and I sell it. Well, I have to report that as capital gains, right? So the same sort of thing with a piece of art. If you invest in art, you go to Columbia Art League tonight and you buy a nice piece of art, and that art becomes wildly famous, you sell it, you have to actually report that. And one of the interesting things about those NFTs is they're actually associating NFTs with physical objects. So let's say that Pam makes the art and I buy it from her for $5. And then it becomes very valuable and I sell it to Sarah for $1 million. Well, how much does Pam get? Well, she's still got the $5. Well, we can actually tie in a contract into this that says she's gonna get 10% of every sale. So every subsequent sale. So then she gets $100,000 off that.
And then if I sell it again, it's.
Yeah,
still
then
back.
it goes for
More.
10 million, then
Another
she gets
10.
$1 million, yeah.
Another 10.
Yeah, so there's some interesting ways that you can use this technology. So like I said, you can also use it for, remember I talked about deep fakes when we talked about AI a while back, a year ago? Well, how do I know that this picture has not been altered? Well, I could do a cryptographic hash, basically creating it as an NFT, and then saying, this is the original, this is what the original looks like. So there's some ways that this technology could actually be very useful in combating things like deep fakes. But unfortunately, that technology is going to take 5 to 10 years to develop. So.
When you took our photo at the beginning, I thought, where's this, what's gonna happen? Are we all gonna come back with dog heads at the end of the thing? Like he's got some intern in the background
Right.
who's gonna split it back to us with us all swapping faces, one to the left or something.
And then sold.
And then sold. We don't know, it could still happen. Maybe he's
I
gonna go back
think
to
you
his
could
office.
solve a
Hold it for
problem
ransom.
for Scott Crystal.
Yeah, he's here.
Yep, he's here.
What about it?
Okay. Well, he wants to have you be able to click on that and it will go down in the newsletter to the voter registration
Now we're
training.
getting texted.
Okay, well, Scott, you need to Google something called HTML anchors, and that will solve your problem for you.
All right, let's see.
Yeah,
He's still on.
he's there, it's right there.
Oh, there he
This
is.
is Scott Crystal.
Yeah, okay. Well, Scott can get a hold of me and
Yeah.
we'll sort that out. All
Thank
right,
you
well,
for
thank you all very much. It was good to
thank
see
you for
you.
doing that.
Thank you.
Let me know anytime. All right,
Are you
bye-bye.
going to the walkout at 2?
I am